And thanks for joining us on Freedom Watch. Your organization, WikiLeaks, within the past week or so, released nearly 400,000 documents which the American government has classified as secret. Why did you do that?
Well, you know, James Madison said that in order for people to remain free, they had to have the power that knowledge would bring, because knowledge would always rule ignorance. And so this sort of material is part of our long-term mission to keep people free and to permit them to engage in acts that produce a just society. In this case, although the material was initially, possibly in some cases rightly classified secret, right, it ceased to be of tactical consideration pretty quickly.
Tell us how it came about that these documents were released. For example, did the government know in advance what you were going to release? Did you take any measures to protect the names of individuals who might still be in jeopardy were their names to be revealed? What's the backstory with these 400,000 pages?
Well, it's quite interesting. You know, last week, the Pentagon spokesperson Lapan and Jeff Morrell made statements that they had reviewed this material and they had seen 300 names of people that needed protecting in it. But actually, what they didn't tell you is they're reviewing their copy of the material, the Pentagon's copy, and not ours. Something that they finally admitted today, that in fact there is none of those names present in our material whatsoever. They created some hype about our release of the Afghan material. You know, this is the standard response by militaries all around the world when embarrassing abuses are revealed.
Right.
It is to say, well, it's some kind of threat. But in fact, the Pentagon last week said that there was not a single case that they could determine of any individual that had been harmed. And NATO in Kabul last week told CNN there was not a single Afghan that they saw that needed protecting or to be moved.
All right.
And this material is of a similar nature.
The last time you released some documents, there was a dispute about whether or not the White House knew about it ahead of time and whether or not the New York Times was communicating to the White House on behalf of WikiLeaks. But are you telling us that this time there was no dispute, that either the White House or the Pentagon itself knew in advance exactly which documents were going to be released? What they didn't know was that you and your people had removed the proper names of certain individuals from those documents, presumably to protect them. Is that a fair and accurate summary of what happened?
Well, more or less. I mean, we were in correspondence with the Pentagon since before the release, since the release of the Afghan war diaries, and the White House since before the release of the Afghan war diaries. And you know, we were trying to get them to assist us. It's an extremely big job to get 400,000 documents properly redacted and into the historical record where everyone can learn from them and where investigations can then take place on that data. The chief counsel of the DOD wrote us a letter saying that they simply would not participate, that they were not interested in harm minimization. They were only demanding a return of everything. That is total 100% censorship.
You quoted Madison at the outset of this interview, a quote that most Americans would embrace, and I certainly agree with it. Transparency is the lifeblood of democracy. The people have to know what the government is doing. But what efforts did you take with respect to these documents in order to assure that innocents would not be killed, or people working for and with the government would not be killed as a result of the revelation of these documents?
Yeah, it's a fair and important question. We started out in the sort of best possible redaction scenario. That is, everything was blanked out. And then we, bit by bit, put in particular words and phrases which we discovered to be safe. So there is not a single name in there as far as we can determine. We also blurred out the location information. So for those events that occurred outside of Baghdad blurred them out to 10 kilometre squares, and for those inside Baghdad to 1 kilometre squares.